Namaskar. Welcome to the 9th episode of Satya Samvad. Bharat is at a historical crossroads. The largest general elections are underway. The politics of projection and the influence of non-state actors is consequential in this regard. In our conversation with Sri Somashekharji, we saw the good work being undertaken by his civil society organization, Grahak Shakti, in the field of economic democracy and consumer rights. However, not all NGOs are working in the same way. For many NGOs, we must look at their potential role as agents in ideological politicking and pushing hidden agendas by selectively projecting a negative picture of Bharat as a Rashtra. There needs to be a nuanced discussion of the intricacies of power, politics, and ideology when it comes to such organizations. The question is, how do we balance the undeniable benefits that civil society organizations bring about with balancing it with the risks that can come about with potential political manipulations by NGOs? It is a tough question, but it's one that is absolutely essential to explore as part of our broader dialogue on democracy and governance. To discuss all this and more, we have with us today Sri Venkatraman Ramakrishnan. Venkat is an alumnus of IIM Calcutta and NIT Silchar with 27 years of experience in industry and academics. During his industrial stint, he has worked with several organizations, including the Tata Strategic Management Group, Infosys, Aditya Birla Retail, and Kirloskar Oil Engines. He's associated as a visiting faculty and offers elective courses and conducts workshops at the Indian School of Business in Hyderabad and Mohali, IIM Indore, and IIM Udaipur. He regularly conducts corporate training for middle and senior level managers in the areas of retail, supply chain, and strategy. We welcome you today.
Namaskaram, Dr. Mrittunjoy.
Namaskar.
Yeah.
So in Satya Samvad, previously, we have recently discussed the positive role that civil society organizations can play in society. But certain NGOs have been infamous for furthering political ideologies over and above their stated mission. Recently, for instance, the Solicitor General, Tushar Mehta, told the Supreme Court that the NGO Environics Trust, which received 90% of its funds from foreign sources, has utilized the resources to finance agitations and protests against coal, steel, and thermal power plant projects to stall the pace of development in India. Among the other prominent NGOs working with an apparently anti-Indian agenda is the international NGO called Oxfam, which released a report recently titled Survival of the Richest, the India Story, in January of 2023. This report has been found to be disproportionately critical towards Bharat, particularly with its critique of taxation, primarily goods and services, corporate and indirect taxes in the country. How factual is this, and what are the main points of this report?
Yes. First of all, namaskaram to all your viewers also, right? Infinity Foundation has got very well-informed audience. I keep watching your videos. Rajivji is a phenomenon by himself. And yes, videos are very informative, and equally informative are the comments given by the viewers. So I'm very privileged to be a part of this show. Now before getting into this Oxfam report, let's have a view of what this Oxfam is, right? Of course, it's an NGO, but there are two types of NGOs or charity organizations. One type of NGOs focus only on the work that they do, like Akshay Patra Foundation, right? They focus only on providing meals to as many children as possible. But there are other type of NGOs, apart, they may be doing some charity work, but their primary focus is also advocacy, right? They influence policy decisions. They bring out many research reports, etc., etc. And many of them are very powerful, right? Let's look at some of the facts about Oxfam, right? I'm quoting from their own annual reports on their websites. They are present in 86 countries, and they have 8,500 employees. Their revenue, right, in 2022-23 was more than $1 billion US, means almost 970 million euros. That means more than $1 billion US. That means 9,000 crores. They are much bigger than many corporations, right? They conduct dialogues with business leaders, political, leaders, etc., etc. They are a very regular, at World Economic Forum in Davos in Switzerland, where they present their views and stuff like that. They have partnerships with some of the big corporates in the world, according to their own website, like Microsoft. I'm reading some of them: Cisco, Marks and Spencer, Unilever, Sainsbury, Facebook. So they've got tie-ups with these type of organizations, and they are ranked among the globally influential NGOs, in the top 10 to 15 NGOs. So it's not just a charity organization in Oxfam. It's a very powerful, influential, networked, well-funded NGO. Right now, let's come to the report that you are talking about. Right? See, if you go to their website, they publish many reports on many topics, right? And one of the things they published regarding India is their annual supplement. The last one I could find was January 2023, where they published the report, which you have mentioned correctly, which is titled Survival of the Richest, India Story. This was published in January 2023. Now, let's remember this date. It's very important for many of the things that we are going to discuss in the future. Right? And January is also very important for them because in January, World Economic Forum conduct their annual meeting in Davos, where Oxfam present many of their research findings and all those things. And it's a very comprehensive commentary on many things related to India. So what Oxfam touches upon the GST, they touch upon the corporate tax reduction, they touch upon the income taxes, they touch upon the income, wealth, etc., right? So it's a very, very, they touch upon many, socioeconomic aspects of the country. Now, what is it that they have said, right, in the 2023 report, which is going to be our point of discussion? See, they try to set a narrative. Let's look at the key messages that they have given in that report. First, they've been highly critical about India's GST, which is goods and service tax, and the corporate tax reduction. Now, these two are, I'll give the details later as we go along. These two are some of the biggest reforms that India has carried out in the last decade, right? They have said that the GST is highly regressive. In fact, they've used the word regressive, if I'm not wrong, at least 8 times in the report, 8 times, right? And GST is anti-poor. They widened the inequalities. Corporate tax reduction. Say India reduced certain corporate taxes, right? It's extremely bad. They made some bizarre, claim that bottom 50% of the population pay majority of the indirect taxes, right? And several other things. And most of these problems can be solved if you impose a wealth tax, right? Now, wealth tax means unrealized capital gains tax, right? Again, we'll discuss that in detail. So this is what the report is all about. So they said tax, they have ran a very, very vitriolic campaign against GST and corporate tax reduction. But their problem is the actual data don't support their views. In fact, as we will see, the actual data is exactly opposite of what Oxfam claimed in their report. So what did Oxfam do? Like, they have decided the narrative first, right? They don't want to change the narrative. It's like, a student who is happy to see a question paper for which you know the numerical answer. See, what do we do? What he do? He will write the numerical answer first, put it in the box, then write the steps. So Oxfam done something similar. So they've said that this is what we are going to say. We don't bother about the data, right? So they have indulged in several types of data distortions, right? First is they, if the current data is not convenient to them, they put out a outdated data and try to show that that is the current data. They try to combine two different datas of two different time periods and try to show that it's a simultaneous occurrence. If neither of this help them, they make some baseless claims, right? And another, I'm sure that you would understand what I'm saying. One very important distortion that they do is they take the exception year data and say that is the trend, when the trend is exactly opposite of it, right? So these are some of the wide varieties of manipulations that they have done. So I'll just give you, there are some 14, 15 manipulations which I have identified. Beyond that, I gave it up. But let me give you 4 or 5, right? First is, see this, if you look at tax collection data, right? Now, the tax collection data is very publicly available information. There is a Central Board of Direct Taxes which gives data, Press Information Bureau gives data, Ministry of Finance gives data, budget. So it's not that the tax collection data is something very difficult to get, right? There, let's look at the manipulations that they have done. So let me tell you, first of all, they have underquoted the tax collection data by almost 40%, 40, right? They said that in the year 2022-23, right, the tax collected in India was roughly around 19.34 lakh crores. That's what they have said. But actually, the tax collected in the year 2022-23 was 30 lakh crores, 30.45 lakh crores. Now you look at the difference. 30.45 lakh crores is the actual data collected, but they said that 19.34 lakh crores was the actual data, which means underquoting it by 40%. They've not given any source for this, right? Where they get this 19.34 lakhs, no source for this, right? Now, why they have done it? Because they want to build a case for increasing the tax rates, especially imposing the wealth tax. So they want to underreport the tax collection that India is having, right? So they're underreported by almost to the tune of 40%, right? Another second one. Their whole premise is that in India, the indirect share of indirect taxes is increasing. Now, we all know what is a direct tax, what is an indirect tax. Direct taxes, when you pay the income tax, it's a direct tax. When the companies, pays taxes out of their profits, it's a direct tax. Indirect taxes, GST, goods and service tax. So when you buy something, when you buy a soap, so there is taxes levied on this, that's an indirect tax, right? They've said that, I'm reading verbatim from the report, since 2020-21, the share of indirect taxes in the state exchequer has risen by 50%. So let me repeat what they have said. Since the year 2020-21, the share of indirect taxes in the state exchequer has risen by 50%. But what is the actual fact? The actual fact is exactly opposite of it, right? For example, in the year 2020-21, which they spoke about, right, the share of direct taxes, the share of indirect taxes was 53.1%. In the next 2 years, it has come down to somewhere around 45%. So look at the reality and what they have presented. When the share of indirect taxes have actually come down, they have said that it has actually increased, right? I'll give you one or two more that will make it very clear. They have, as I said, been extremely critical of goods and service tax. I don't know why, right? because goods and service tax is a very big reform that India has undertaken, right? And it has gone through a 20-year period. It was first proposed in the year 2000, gone through several constitutional steps, finally got implemented in 2017, right? Because before GST, there used to be a lot of taxes, 10, 15, 20 taxes. They got subsumed to single tax. What Oxfam says is, right? He says that since the implementation of GST, the share of direct tax has come down by 5%, right? Declined by 5% in the year 2020-21. If I read it very verbatim, since the implementation of GST, the share of direct taxes out of total gross revenue declined by 5% by the year 2020-21, right? Now, there are two things to be noted here. They are publishing the report in the year 2023 in January 2023. Now, this is the data of 2020-21. Now, by the time they were publishing this report, 2021-22 data was already available. 9-month data related to 2022-23 was already there. So why did they take 2020-21 data? Because they wanted to show that with the implementation of GST, the share of direct taxes has come down, which is actually false. Again, I read out some numbers. See, GST was implemented in 2017, July, if I'm not wrong, July 2017. If you look 1 year before, July 2016-17, the share of direct taxes was 49.7%, right? In the year 2022-23, the share of direct taxes was 54.6%. So what has happened? The direct taxes, the share of direct taxes has increased from 49 to 54%, right? Now, why did they take 2021? Because that was a pandemic year. Only in that year, the share of direct taxes reduced to 46.8%, right? So if I summarize, after the implementation of GST, let's say, I think there are 6 years, 17-18 to 2022-23. In 5 of the 6 years, the direct tax collection share of direct taxes was more than 50%, right? Only for 1 year, it was 46% due to pandemic. They have taken that and said that this is the trend, right? So this is how they have distorted the data. Again, one more example, corporate tax reduction, right? See, first of all, India reduced the corporate taxes from 30% to 22% in 2019. And for newer companies, it was around 15%, right? To attract investment, to make India competitive. Oxfam is extremely critical about it. In fact, if you look at the world global data, more than 200 countries have the corporate taxes less than, less than 25%. So India implemented it very late. But they have said that corporate taxes have reduced the corporate tax cuts have reduced the corporate tax collection. Again, what they have done was they have taken only till the pandemic year data. So if you look at 2021 and 2022-23 data, the corporate taxes has increased. If I read it out, during 2020-21, it was roughly around 4.5 lakh crores. 2021-22, it went to 7.1 lakh crores. 2022-23, it went to 8.25 lakh crores. What Oxfam had done, they had stopped at 2020-21. They've said that corporate tax collection had led to a lot of losses. So these are some of the examples, right? So if you see what they have done, they have underquoted the India's tax collection by 40%. They have said that the share of direct taxes have come down, which is false. They've said that if they've taken 1 year pandemic year and showed that as a trend, right? So everything that they claim in the tax in their tax reporting is a distortion. And one more claim that they make without providing any data. They said that any increase in the indirect taxes is regressive. But that's not true, because rich people may buy a Swiss chocolate, right? It will increase the indirect taxes. Now, how does it impact the poor? It doesn't impact the poor. So when you say that indirect taxes impact the poor, you should show these are the products for which indirect tax rates have increased. They have not given anything of that nature, right? So these are some of the examples which I want to start with. So they completely distorted the tax data.
I think that was very insightful in terms of the specific examples and facts that you mentioned. And I'm reminded of the time when I recall an incident which happened at SOAS in London, which is a very prominent university out there. And there was a discussion on policy matters, and especially about radicalism in a certain section of India. And I remember this classic example of cherry picking, where they had kind of selectively put out different kinds of facts, which were obviously projected or aligned in a certain manner. And not only that, they kind of completely discredited any other alternate kind of points of discussion or interest in a very kind of regressive, to use the word that they have, manner, so to say, right? Now, very interestingly, the left and the Congress, currently with the general elections underway, has tried to paint the current Indian government as anti-poor. And that is not quite conceptually correct, given that we do see something along the lines of the classic 1,000 points of equity approach that the Union government seems to have adopted, where there are measured financial redistribution with a multidimensional approach. However, the Oxfam report criticizes Bharat's reduction in corporate tax rates, as you mentioned, suggesting that it has caused a significant drop in tax revenues instead of an increase. More specifically, and what is of greater interest, it kind of tries to define the different kinds of hierarchies of the tiers, essentially, the socioeconomic tiers, and it goes on to claim that the bottom 50% of the population earns 13% of the national income, but pays about 64.3% of the indirect taxes. It also mentions that while 70% of corporates have seen profit increase in 21-22, 84% of the households experienced a decline in income, on the other hand. So how do these factoids, how do these aspects align with actual data?
No, they don't align at all. Let me take the second, point that you have said. That's Oxfam reported that while 70% corporates increased their profits in the year 2021-22, 84% households suffered decline in their income. This is what they said. First of all, this is against common sense. It's not possible. Corporates cannot make more profits when 84% of the households experience decline in the income. Because if 84% experience decline in the income, there will be a drop in the demand. So there will not be much to sell. So common sensically does. But what they have done was, again, this is also a very good example of how these people manipulate. They have taken two different data of two different time periods. The first statement that 70% corporates increased their profits. That was a 2021-22 data. The second data, that 84% experienced decline in income, that was the data belonging to April 2020. So two different time periods, right? And let me also tell you what they have done interestingly. See, that 2020-21, it was pandemic. So both corporate profits and the income reduced, right? And the CMI, they took this data from CMI, right? CMI conducted a study in April 2020 in which they said that 84% households experienced decline in the income, which was expected because that was the first month of the lockdown. Then in the next year, they took into the report 2021, in the 2022 report, They said that 84% of the households experienced decline in income in the beginning of the pandemic. So which is the next year, right? In the first year, when they said it is belonged to April 2020. The next year, they said they removed the April 2020 time period. So they said beginning of the pandemic. When it comes to 2023 report, they've removed pandemic and all those things, and they have juxtaposed with the data of 2021-22. Now, if you actually look at the CMIA report, in the year 2021-22, they have published a report in March, same CMIE, which said that households' income also experiencing a huge increase, right? So the reality was this, Doctor. In 2020-21, both corporate profits and household income reduced. In the year 2022, both corporate profits and the household income increased, based on the reports that Oxfam was referring to. But what they have done, because this goes against their narrative. So they took the 2021-22 data of corporate profits and took the household decline data of April 2020 and juxtaposed it. That's one. Now, the second thing that you have said, that's a very bizarre, claim that they have made. They made a claim, in fact, very famous claim, that bottom 50% of the population earn or pay 64.3% of the indirect taxes on select food and non-food items, right? Now, we all know indirect taxes you pay based on the consumption. So if you consume, you will pay. Otherwise, you will not pay. So that means they say that bottom 50% of the population consume 64% of the select product and services. Now, it's interesting to see what are the select product and services. I'll just read out some of them. Washing machine, laptop, jewelry, air conditioners, dry fruits, right? Then ornaments. Now, bottom 50%, they say they consume 64% of these products. Completely belies any common sense. Oxfam have done this. And another one, where they have taken this data, 50% population, bottom 50% and 13% of income, they have taken from a Thomas Piketty study, right? So, there are, they released World Inequality Report. This study was completely criticized by two major economists in India, Swaminathan Iyer and Surjit Balla, very eminent economists. They said that this is a useless report, this Thomas Piketty report. And Surjit Balla went to the extent of saying that they don't even pass the smell test, right? I'll give you one anomaly in that report. They've said that bottom 50% earn only 13% of the income. In that same study, it was said that top 1% earn 21% of the national income. Top 1% of the population. Now, Swaminathan Iyer asked a very simple question. You do the calculation here. That means from the top 1%, themselves, India should be getting somewhere around 13 lakh crores of income tax from the top 1%. But in that year, the total income tax was just 4.9%, 4.9 lakh crores or so. Right. Doesn't gel at all, right? So these are some of the, so you asked since two specific things. They made two, claims which belies common sense, as I said before. One is bottom 50% pay so much of indirect taxes. Now, what are the products they considered? Washing machine, laptops, utensils. The only thing that they have not considered is a private jet, right? That the bottom 50%, are consuming. And the second thing, which was very, very mischievous thing that they have done, it's taking two different time period data and putting it as, it's something like this. In 1952, India made the first 5-year plan, but there are a lot of famine deaths in Bengal. If somebody says this, immediately it belies common sense, because 5-year plan happened in 52, 53. Bengal famine deaths would have happened 10 years back. So something like that they had done. right? And even poverty estimates, poverty, inflation. See, in the in the year that they have said 2022, India's average inflation was somewhere around 7%. But what they have done was they have taken some article where two people, one is a housewife and other is a maybe social worker. They have said that our food bills are increasing by maybe 100% or doubled. So Oxfam used that as a estimate, and they've said according to some estimates, inflation have almost doubled, right? So these are some of the ways that they have constructed. Mind you, this is $1 billion NGO. Yes. So,
absolutely. Yeah. I think, and it's absurd the manner in which they have juxtaposed, as you just mentioned, literally again, cherry picked, juxtaposed, tried to build the data around the narrative, right? Instead of the narrative around or based on the data. You mentioned about inflation, and specifically Oxfam has kind of spoken on food inflation, for instance, and it has challenged the accuracy of India's poverty data. It has criticized also various, social sector schemes which have done wonders, which have even revolutionized, some of the various, human resource parameters, such as the Jal Jeevan Mission, the Swachh Bharat Mission, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, and the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, which has worked towards food security and various other, aspects thereof. So what sources do they rely on these assertions, which are quite brazen, might I add, and definitely are trying to kind of, put forth the narrative that is that India is not doing well, and all these social sector schemes are not quite hitting the mark they should?
Very good question. In fact, Oxfam in their websites claim that they work in the areas of water, sanitation, poverty, gender, environment, food, essential services. This is what they claim, right? So normally, if you are such an organization, you should have evaluated the schemes in this country, which are addressing those problems. Like, as you have correctly said, like Jal Jeevan Mission, which is providing drinking water, Swachh Bharat, like toilets, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan. Oxfam has not even touched on this. That's a surprising part of it. They have not even, mentioned anything about any of these schemes. See, now nobody expects them only to, write positive things. We all know that there are certain issues. So they could have said, okay, government claims so many water connections have been given, but certain connections are not working. Nothing. They have not even touched upon any of these things, which they claim is the core of their work, right? Only one statement that they made was 4 years back, about 1 billion people in India did not have access to drinking water. Now they are publishing a report in 2023. Why should you look at 4 years back? Because sometime in 2019, Jal Jeevan Mission was launched. So the water connection has increased. Right now it has reached some 70% or so. By the time they published this report in January 2023, probably it would have been 55-60%. They didn't want to show this. So, and also regarding poverty, they are going after the Planning Commission report of 2004-2005. See, Planning Commission came out with a report in between 2005, 2010. In fact, their report started with this Oxfam report. They said Planning Commission's claim is wrong. And what is it that they're relying on? There is a professor by name Utsa Patnaik of Jawaharlal Nehru University. She had written an article when 2013. Now imagine you are publishing a report in 2023. You are attacking the poverty data of 2009 using an article written in 2000. Why are you doing all these things? Because Niti Aayog publishes the multi-dimensional poverty data. Right. You could have attacked it. We're not saying that you take it, but you could have. But they didn't even engage it. The point is, the core of their work, which they claim as core of their work, they have not engaged. Poverty data, they have looked at the previous some 20-year-old data, and they are going after the GST and corporate tax reduction. And again, as I pointed out, complete manipulation. Manipulation is a minor word; it's a distortion. Right. So, and also all this they are building to make a case for the wealth tax, right? So that's in a way that's very repetitive in each of their reports. Now, let me tell you what is a wealth tax. Wealth tax means unrealized capital gains tax, right? Say, suppose Dr. Mrittunjoy has some shares, right? And let's say last year the value of the shares was 5 lakhs. This year the value of the shares have become 10 lakhs. This 5 lakhs is unrealized because you have not sold it. They said that tax this 5 lakhs, which you have not sold. It's called as a unrealized capital gains tax. Or if you have a house, right, whose value has increased, you tax that. Now, before getting into the specifics, in 2022, they had given Argentina as an example to follow for India. Now, Argentina is a basket case, right? Now, Argentina is the largest debtor to IMF. I think in 2023, the debt which Argentina owed to IMF was more than the debt of next 3 countries put together. Their inflation rate was more than 200%. They crossed 200% in sometime in 2023. This country was shown to India as an example to follow for progressive taxation. India had not taken any IMF loan after 1993, if I'm not wrong. And we have paid all the IMF loans, by 2000. And we are shown Argentina basket case as a country. Oxfam had the guts to do that, right? And let me tell you what this capital, gains, right? It's very difficult to implement it. They say that, say, Mr. Anil Ambani or Mukesh Ambani has got 50,000 crores. You tax them, right, at 1%, 2% like that. Now, to pay these taxes, say, assume that you claim a tax of, let's say, 16,000 crores on Mukesh Ambani. Assume that his share worth is 8 lakh crores. Where will he pay this 16,000 crores? There's not an income. Mukesh Ambani can pay the 16,000 crores only if he sells his shares. Now, if he sells his shares, the share price will collapse, right? So it's not as easy as they show. And not only that, they said tax top 1%. Suppose I have a house in Chennai. My father has built a house. Today, the value of the house is 1 crore. Small house. I don't get any income. My mother is staying there. Oxfam says tax that also, right? So if at all you follow what Oxfam says, the share market, wealth market, everything will collapse. And how much they are quoting? They are quoting they're given some numbers. They said that if you tax all the billionaires by 1%, 2%, etc., you will get 1.8 lakh crores. No, 1.8 lakh crores is nothing. Already India has collected 30 lakh crores. And every year it's increasing by 10, 12%. So very simple calculation. Without doing any of these things, our tax collection will increase by 2.5 to 3 lakh crores on a conservative estimate every year. Just to get 1.8 lakh crores, Oxfam want us to destroy, right, the complete economy, the investment, everything. So that's the beauty of their solution.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's a very unidimensional or very limited kind of understanding of, a system or a model, which is, as you said, multidimensional. It has a lot of different correlative and causative aspects, right? Where there are many different stakeholders and cross-sections of society that are working together towards, this economic behemoth that India is becoming, and hopefully will become even more, going towards this idea that, Shri Narendra Modi speaks about, which is of Vikasit Bharat. Now, when we talk about NGOs, and especially an NGO like Oxfam, there is a need for discerning what agendas are being pushed in the name of civil society organizations, as they are often very close to the ground and to the people. And they have, been selectively highlighted in international media houses if they are aligned with specific agenda points. A case in point is that of the coverage during COVID, for instance, that painted the response from the government of India as abysmal, while facts spoke a little differently, essentially. In another aspect, for instance, when Finance Minister Srimati Nirmala Sitharamanji announced a 1.7 lakh crore rupees relief package under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, for the poor during that period of time, there was, a very conspicuous silence essentially along those lines. And rather, an international media house like BBC created, furor, a minor furor, if not more, over burning pyres and the numerous dead in India. So, in this context, in the context of the Oxfam report, what goals are they trying to achieve with it, and how can we be more careful and discerning about such civil society organizations and NGOs which are clearly working for a hidden agenda, so to say?
Very good question. See, firstly, we should understand there are 13 people involved in preparing this report. 13 people, according to their own, their own acknowledgements or whatever. Now, in any reputed organization, right, when you are putting something for the public consumption, the organization will be very, very careful. They will cross-check all the numbers and all those things. And as you would have understood, the manipulations in the Oxfam report are not errors, or not oversight. They are done deliberately, right? The persons who have prepared the report know exactly what they are doing, right? Because a simple tax data, right, which anybody can correlate, right? And you are putting a different number, that to fit a particular story. So they know exactly what they have done. So regarding the objective is, first of all, they know there are no consequences, right? There will not be any consequences of doing such work. Second, see, I've been a consultant. In consultant, there used to be a joke. You should not prepare a report with the hope that people will not read it, right? In fact, Oxfam have done exactly that. They know that nobody will read it, which they're right till now, right? Look at, once their report was published, Economic Times, Mint, Financial Express, Business Line, all of them published Oxfam report in the front page, right? Now, I would say that these media houses have done huge disservice to the readers. When you read something in Economic Times, you believe that, okay, this newspaper had done some due diligence, right? They have not done, at least you have published it. Afterwards, you can do some analysis. So the point is, Oxfam or NGOs like Oxfam has got a very strong dissemination channel. And they've got some big names associated, like Amartya Sen. He was honorary president at some point in time. Kaushik Basu, who was the chief economic advisor to India and chief economist of the World Bank, he had cited Oxfam report twice and tweeted. P. Chidambaram, who was the finance minister in the recently concluded India Today conclave, he has cited Oxfam report. Professor Jaiti Ghosh, Professor Prabhat Patnaik, Ashok, there are a lot of people who talk about Oxfam report. So even finance minister was asked a question in Rajya Sabha, like Oxfam have come out with such reports, so what are you going to do about it? The question was not whether it is correct or not. Oxfam had come, so what? So the Oxfam's objective is to create a false narrative against India's tax reforms. That's in single word. And it's a well-funded initiative. Now, that's my answer to your question. And to answer, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was actually this point about culpability, right? I mean, who is culpable? I mean, I think many of the quote unquote left liberal influencers, for instance, or even the quote unquote academics or intellectuals, right? I mean, for instance, Professor Ashok Swain, I mean, he has become notorious for his, his diatribes, his tirades against, many of the things in India. Now, the thing is, they are obviously not in Bharat as such. I mean, and they are, from a remote location, kind of, dishing out these great gems of wisdom, so to say. But however, the other important thing which is of great concern is the way in which in the Congress regime, for instance, there was a lot of interfacing of NGOs within government-based schemes. So, for instance, many of the dissemination or the distribution of the schemes or the policies was with many of these NGOs as middlemen, as agents, so to say, of the distribution process. And obviously, many of these NGOs had relations with the foreign bodies, with funding bodies elsewhere. And so it brought in this whole aspect of national security, of course, and
Yes.
also a manner of, neocolonialism, if not, an outright influence in a much greater way. So there is clearly an implicit threat to national security and social harmony in these subsurface activities of various organizations, particularly NGOs. And the Indian government currently has cancelled many of the FCRA licenses of NGOs in the last decade, with an Intelligence Bureau report even highlighting how the politics of projection by specific NGOs have led to tangible economic as well as political losses. So to what degree should countries take notice of reports like that by Oxfam? And what should be the institutional and civil society response so that we can, stem this, the negative influence of this and the repercussions that may come from this as such?
Yeah. Firstly, as laughable as their reports are, we should take it very seriously, right?
Right.
First of all, there are several such reports. Oxfam is not one. In fact, recently I have come across a report which said that in India, academic freedom is lower than or poorer than that of Afghanistan and Pakistan. There is a report. Now, you don't need to look at any data. In Afghanistan and Pakistan, first of all, it's very difficult to find academics at all, right? Forget academic freedom, right? So there are several such reports, and they are going to come. Why they are going to come? Because on the supply side, a lot of funding is being available. And a lot of career options are there. Imagine the people who have prepared this Oxfam report. Maybe after a couple of years, they will go and present their views in Davos in Switzerland. So, standing in front of the snow-clad Alps mountain, sipping hot chocolate, talking about India's poverty, right? How nice a career it is. And a lot of such career options are available, right? So on the supply side.
Right.
On the demand side in India, there are many academicians, media houses, NGOs. They are waiting for such reports, right? And once such reports are published, they keep, disseminating, this information. So the reality is there will be more and more such reports. But how to stop it? Firstly, there are 2 or 3 entities who can play a role. First of all, whatever you say, all these are peddled in the name of research, right? So the academicians, should revert, right? And it's not that difficult. So the academic community should read such reports and should write a proper rebuttal. Secondly, the media houses like Economic Times, Mint, Financial Express, they should be very careful while publishing this report. They should do some due diligence at least. Third, what about the government? So this is a clear case of distortion, what Oxfam had done. Right? If this country, and they're an entity present in the country. I'm not a lawyer, but there should be such laws through which these type of organizations which peddle false information deliberately should be tried. I've read that the government is taking initiative under their FCRA license cancel. That's not good enough.
Right.
They should go beyond that, right? And also the government should realize this is a new form of warfare, which is the information warfare.
Right.
I remember seeing a video a long time back about, I'm sure, Yuri Bezmenov, I think. Sorry for the name, I spelled it wrongly. He was a KGB agent, right? Who moved over to US, escaped, and then he had given a lot of interviews, written a lot of books. He spoke about distortion, right? Subversion. He says that it takes 15 years, right, to subvert a country, to demoralize a country. And one of the things which is essential is spreading this type of information, right? Spread this information. And we should all realize if this type of information is allowed to be peddled freely, afterwards then become the truth, right? Oxfam is not preparing such report for academic purpose.
Right.
They want, this to be in the consciousness of the people, right? So this will become the truth, and afterwards we have to struggle a lot to dispel this truth. Right?
Right.
So to summarize, there is a role to be played for academic community, media houses, and government should see it as a security threat in the form of information warfare and subversion. So that's my view on this.
Absolutely. I think, it has been such a wonderful discussion around many aspects of this new beast, so to say, which is that of subversion of different kinds of, development schemes of the reality of the country, of reality of Bharat as such. And within Satya Samvad and in the Infinity Foundation, we have often focused upon the different, the tentacles, so to say, the different limbs of this, international network of elements that are working almost in a very concerted and a very focused manner to subvert the consciousness of Bharat, the consciousness of Dharma, for instance. And we need to kind of be proactive and also track, tag, and work, in a very focused manner to dismantle these aspects which are inherently adharmic, right? I mean, it is based on deceit, it is based on illusions and, untruth, falsities, so to say. So it has been a wonderful discussion, Venkat. Thank you for joining us today. And we look forward to having you potentially going forward in, discussing more aspects related to the financial side and the NGO sector as such. And we look forward to more of your analysis, the in-depth analysis that you have brought forth today.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Mrittunjoy. Nice talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we look forward to you all joining us for the next session of Satya Samvad. Dhanyavad.
Definitely. Thank you.